Hey everyone, welcome back to Comic Strip Teased. My name's Matt.
I'm Dave.
And we're here talking the art of comics.
Today we're going to be talking about Image Comics. It's a publisher that is a favorite of both Matt and mine, so it's one that we're really excited to talk about. There's a lot of great titles coming out from Image.
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely the publisher I buy the most from every month, and probably has been for the last 5 years. I just find that it has the best artists, the best diversity of ideas and creativity.
Well, first of all, you get more mature storytelling as a whole.
I think that's probably my draw to it as well, and also I've sort of grown out of the superhero thing, and it's just like movies. There's westerns, there's war pictures, there's love stories, there's action, adventure. It's not just like at Marvel and DC where it's kind of just superhero stuff.
Right.
So I think I like the diversity in terms of just genres and storytelling techniques and artists and everything. Maybe there's more than this, but I would say there's 3 phases. The first phase was the original creators, which was guys like Todd McFarlane,
Eric Larson.
Yeah, Rob Liefeld and those guys. And they were basically just doing superhero art because they just took kind of everything they were doing at Marvel and brought it over, just put a different coat of paint on it and called it new, right? And then in phase 2 was when those creators started letting other creators work on their stuff. So you had when Warren Ellis was able to take Stormwatch and then turn it into the Authority, bringing guys like Brian Hitch in as and really became something unique and different in the storytelling.
But now it's so far away from all of that. Even, I mean, Spawn is still going, but
yeah, some of those books are still going. But you're right. That was kind of when that turned into what I would call phase 3, which is probably more like early 2000s when I think it was like Jim Valentino and Eric Larson and certainly Eric Stevenson as editor, when they started really bringing in new creative talent to do completely new books that had nothing to do with the original Wildcats and Spawn and all of that.
I think the turning point for them was bringing in Kirkman's Walking Dead. That was like 2003.
Yeah.
So you had Driven comic that was black and white. Nobody knew what it was. Zombies weren't big at the time. But that seems to be that turning point of where all these other writers were bringing unique stories in that had nothing to do with any of the old guard. And then it just blew up from there. And I mean, since 2003, I couldn't even tell you how many titles that I've liked from Image.
Oh, right. It's crazy. Dozens and dozens.
It's great.
And it kind of goes without saying that there isn't a house style at Image just because of the nature of it all being these creator-owned things, and it isn't, like the bullpen of Marvel.
Right.
But would you say there's any trends or similarities or anything that we, tropes, anything that we can kind of say, these are examples of Image comic pages, or artwork?
No, it's all over the place. I mean, you've got all different styles, just different genres of comics coming out. There's so many good writers that bring in good artists that give us a very unique product with every title. So I think that the vast majority of the stuff they put out is really good. Even the stuff that's not that great is still better than most companies' good stuff.
I agree.
So that's why we have some original art from that publisher that we love.
So let's look at some of the pages we brought today. Between Dave and I, we have a dozen or so different original art pages from Image Comics creators. Dave, what's your first Image page today?
The first one that I'm going to share is definitely one of my favorite Image titles, and I was ecstatic to get a page from it.
Yeah.
So that would be 5 Ghosts by Chris Mooneyham. He has an old school style. He's younger than us, but he's like an old curmudgeon. Loves old school art. This is exactly the kind of stuff that he liked reading when he was younger, and he still does. It's totally 70s style, which I love. I think is great. But this page is from 5 Ghosts, which if you haven't read it, definitely read it. So this page, this was a no-brainer for me to buy. I loved it. I think that it's got all the elements in a page that I look for. It's got like a bigger panel that shows the main character, and then it goes into a cool panel layout that's unique from a lot of other pages, which is another thing I always like to look for. It's got some tension going on in the story. So it's one of those pages that you just look at. You don't even have to know what the story is. you can pick up on what was going on.
Yeah, I think so. He's a really good storyteller, I think, foremost. And then he also has a cinematic eye. Certainly when you look at this page in particular, along the bottom, you sort of see this time sequence zooming in on them. And there's a tension there that's built just from the visual. You don't need to have, like in a movie, music pumping and some kind of dialogue or you just can see it just in pictures what's happening. And that's, I think, one of his real gifts.
Like I said, this was an easy purchase for me. I don't think very expensive. So if you check out Five Ghosts and you like it, there are pages available online. I would definitely recommend taking a look at him.
I think he's with Felix.
He's with Felix, yeah. Yeah, he's a Felix guy. So Felix has a great website. That's definitely one that, like I said, check out Chris Mooneyham.
First page I'm going to show today is similar to Dave, one of my favorites. This one is from the Injection comic, which was written by Warren Ellis and drawn by Declan Shalvey. I guess my biggest thing on this one is I just think it feels so real and has such amazing detail. The buildings, the bricks, the lampposts, everything feels like it's almost photographic. And and maybe he is using photo reference, but at the same time, I don't think so. I mean, it just has, there's just a quality about it.
I just think he's that good, honestly. And the way that the main character just pops out of the page on that versus the backgrounds, even though the backgrounds themselves stand alone so well because of the detail, like you mentioned, and the ink wash that's used on the bricks and stuff like that. That main character looks photographic, like you said.
Right.
It just jumps off the page. It looks almost 3D, which is incredibly impressive.
Yeah, I think seeing these ink washes too, that was a big draw for me to buy the page. It made this one unique for me because typically the stuff I had was all just black and white, and to get something that had these ink washes just added so much detail to the page, so much atmosphere to the scene. And I also loved from a cinematic standpoint, storytelling standpoint, that he centered the character the whole time, that it wasn't an asymmetrical page, but it really was about following this character from this building out to her car, and it, if you've read the book, it set up this big thing that was coming next from sort of an action standpoint.
Yeah, if you haven't read Injection, that's one of the coolest books in the last few years.
Oh, it's my favorite book from the last few years.
It's weird and great, and you don't know exactly where it's going when you start reading it, and that makes it even better.
At the time, it was one of the more expensive pages I've bought, and as we've mentioned, I'm kind of cheap. So this one broke the $200 barrier for me, which I don't always do. But I think I got this at C2E2. We were Cadence was there. That's an art dealer, and that guy's super nice. And I think we kind of worked out a little deal because I had bought a couple pages. So I got a good deal. I love it, and it's definitely one of my favorites.
The next page I want to share was one that actually I wasn't really planning on buying. It just ended up turning out that way.
That happens a lot when you're at the con and you're in the mode.
Yeah. Or on one of the dealer's websites, and it's really easy to just put it in the cart.
That's a rabbit hole you get down sometimes.
Yeah, it's bad. So, or good, however you want to look at it. But the one that I want to share it's a Huck page by Raphael Albuquerque. It's this guy, I love his art, and he's been kind of all over the place with different publishers drawing things, different types of stories. And this one was I bought it on a whim. And I bought this one online, which I don't do as often. I like to typically buy them right from the artist or at a show. But I have bought some online, of course. But this one was just kind of a spur-of-the-moment thing. I was actually looking for something else, but I couldn't pass it up when I saw it. The price on it was really reasonable. It was around $200. It might have been even just a hair less than that, but this page just jumped out when I was looking on the computer at it. I just had to get it.
Well, I think this brings up a good point about sometimes you're buying just because of the artist or the story versus the specific title that they were in. Because like you said, that might not be the favorite comic of his that he's done, but it might be one of your favorite pages he's done, even though it's not in one of those books.
Right, yeah, there's different reasons why we buy pages. And this one, for me, it was just the page jumped out. And for the price, I wanted to have one of his art pages. And this one, just like I said, I thought was great. If you look at all the inks that he used, and the style that he did it, and then with the ink wash, kind of like you were just talking about yours, this is a big ink wash page.
Right.
And he's also got just a lot of blacks in it too. The close-up of the main character, I just thought it was just a really compelling page. I had to have it.
Yeah, it's a great one. But one thing we both like is finding a page that has a good story happening on it, that you don't need to read the word balloons to know what's happening on the page. And then it has, maybe like a great character face or a great piece of action. And I think this one has a lot of everything that we look for in pages.
Yeah, I want to have the main character if possible. I want to have it where you look at the page and it's something that you want to know what's going to happen next.
Right.
But it kind of has its own little story within it at the same time. So those are all things that I look for. So for me, it was a good purchase.
That's perfect.
All right, Matthew, you've got another page you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, this is one I got just last year. It's kind of a different page for me to get, just because of subject matter and maybe the style of it a little bit. But it's something I really love. It's from a series called Copperhead, which is a really great kind of sci-fi Western series. All it took was reading one issue and I was completely hooked and loved it. But there's just something about the way he draws that I just love. It's clean, but yet still has those blacks and textures that just feel like a mature illustration and not, it's not cartoony, despite the fact that you've got all these alien monsters and, big sort of cat-looking creatures and stuff. But it still feels serious and real at the same time. I don't know why it just works.
Yeah, it does. It's a really cool comic. I liked it a lot. Everything's proportional with his art. I think that's one of the reasons why
way to put it. Yeah.
It's not cartoony like you said. Like some of the characters might be, but the way he draws them,
yeah, that's a good
real.
point. That is a good point. Yeah, I love how it's kind of this close-up. It's this tense situation, and then he even plays around with some lettering, and it just works.
It's a great page. There's action in it. It's got, again, some of the main characters. It's the cross-hatching is crazy in a couple of those panels.
Yeah, and that cross-hatching's kind of an interesting point too. Is there's a lot of artists, and not to say this is right or wrong, but they leave things blank so that the colorists can do their thing to it. And I really like pages that have the artists filling in their backgrounds, whether it be showing the scene or putting textures in. It just helps create mood and atmosphere to what's happening, and isn't reliant on a colorist just to put in like an orange background or something.
No, that's a great point. That fourth panel down is completely Kirby-esque, which I thought was a really cool touch to it with the gun and the close-up. And then you have the action on the bottom panel. This is a perfect example of those pages that it tells a story in itself.
Yeah, I really love it. And it's the type of page I'm always going to jump at. All right, David, we've got one more for you to show. What do you got?
This was a surprise purchase for me at a con in Charlotte at Heroes Con. And that's a Shanghai Red page by Joshua Hickson, who I was very excited to meet because I didn't realize he was going to be there. And so Joshua Hickson was there, and I picked up a page from him. I'm the first person to buy a page from him.
Oh, that's really cool.
It was very cool.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yep. Only the writer and him had any pages, and he said I was the first person to make a purchase.
That's a cool little thing.
It is.
Awesome.
So, and I just think he has a great art style. It's totally up my alley. It's the
kind of. It is. I love it.
Yeah, it's the art that I love. And this page I thought was cool because, again, has the main character in it. It has another character that's integral to the story. It's a couple of unique panels. I love the ship and kind of how it's tilted. It makes you feel like it's, again, coming right at you. I like his style with all the ink. There's just a lot of black on the page, which is another appealing thing.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful.
So this one was easy. The page came out to around $100. Again, for an image page,
right?
That's cheap.
Yeah, I think anything around that sort of $100 range is like, just if you like it, buy it, because you're not going to find it cheaper.
Right, and especially if you can buy it right from the artist. He's the one getting all the money. And this is an up-and-comer. I think he's going to do a lot of big things. We've seen this for 25 years, guys that we've met early on end up becoming big. Right. This is a guy I think that's definitely going to go places, whether it's with Image or Marvel or DC or whoever. But I like it.
No, I think it's beautiful. I love it's sort of sketchy, but yet it still has a realisticness to it. The lighting is great. A lot of great darks. I tend to gravitate towards pages that have a lot of blacks. This has it, tells a good story. I just think it's a really nice example. Okay, and the last page I'd like to talk about today is a really cool page, one of my favorites, and it's from a book called Undertow, and it's drawn by Artyom Trakhanov. Sorry if I got that wrong.
That's a mouthful.
He's a Russian artist who I first discovered on this book and have since followed him. It just has an energy about it that I really like. I love all the sloppy brushwork. I love all the different techniques. You can actually see thumbprints on here. You can see splatter where he's blowing on his brush to spray ink on the page. There's whiteout on this. It's just sort of a culmination of all these different techniques in one page.
I'd like to know how many different types of brushes or pens he used on
Right.
this, because, I mean, you know more about that than I do, but he definitely used some different techniques, like you said. It's a very unique page.
One thing, too, I'd kind of like to talk about on this one is, as you can see from the scan, he is doing the initial layouts on the computer and then printing that out in blue line and then doing all of his inks over the top of that. So more and more artists do that today. How do you feel about buying a page that has a digital pencil versus, a graphite pencil, and does that impact, your decision to buy a page or not?
I have no problem with it. I mean, it makes sense. A lot of the artists say that they like to draw on a computer first because of the quickness that they can do it. A lot of this obviously is time sensitive, so they need to get these pages out faster. And you're still getting original art on it. Agreed.
And I tend to think guys, especially people from Image, tend to not have inkers. Now this is not, for all, but I'm just saying a majority. So I don't mind that he's doing all of this inking over sort of, roughs that he did on the computer.
It's still original. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. I think it's kind of cool seeing the blue lines.
Okay, so now that we've looked at our pages, it's time for us to think about what pages we don't have that we're on the hunt for.
It's always time to look at other pages that we need that we don't have.
Exactly. Got any favorites you're looking for?
Well, going back to what we said at the beginning, Image is definitely one of our, go-tos for pages. I mean, there's a lot of great creators there. So yeah, there's a long list. I mean, if I just kind of did a quick narrowing down, I would say Gideon Falls by
that's been really good.
Andrea Sorrentino. I love that guy's art. It's fantastic.
I would love to see what those pages look like too, because you can see he does a lot of scraping or scratching, and you can tell there's some photo reference in there too. So I'd be real curious just what his process is. Yeah, those would be cool to see.
Lazarus is another one for me.
Oh, I love Michael Lark.
Me too. Well, and then we met his background guy. Yeah,
that's an interesting story too, because we found out that he draws all of the foreground stuff, but then he has assistants who help do the backgrounds for him, which I can't blame him. I mean, who likes drawing backgrounds? But yeah, for Image, I think, I'm a huge Sean Phillips fan, and I think all of the work him and Brubaker have been doing, stuff, like Criminal and the Fade Out and Fatale.
That's great stuff.
What else? Do you have any other ones?
Yeah, I think the one that I definitely would get next, East of West. So, real quickly on that, I talked to him before.
Right.
He drew it all digitally originally.
Right.
But he had so many people ask for original pages that he decided to redraw each page once. So it's still an original.
That's cool. I mean, I'm sure he realized how much money he was missing out.
He did.
By not
That's what he
doing
told
it.
me.
Yeah.
He said he did the numbers. He added up all the pages he did, and it was a big number of money.
Right. Well, so we've got stuff to shoot for.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. We hope you enjoyed today's video, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. See you later.
If you like the content of this video, please drop a thumbs up below to support the channel, and make sure to click subscribe to see future content.